My God, what an incredible episode this was. We had a bit of everything. Action, drama, suspense, dragon battles, politics, deaths, future plot point developments, great character arcs, great acting. We had literally everything. This episode was on point. They did the Battle of Rook's Rest.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
I don't think they could have done it any better. And it's just what this season needed. Just the right amount of action, some great CGI. I thought the dragons looked fantastic. And I thought that ending was so well crafted. The other thing I liked was when Kristen basically turned on the secret plan, and we got the payoff of what they'd been planning since episode 1. And I thought that was just well executed as well by both Kristen and Aemond, and how they got the message across to Aemond. But I did love the subtle little pause from Aemond when he saw Sunfire go across him, go above him in the sky. He thought, yeah, I'm going to let Sunfire and Aegon kind of whittle down Malys, so Malys is at less health, get that HP bar down. That was his time to capitalise on the situation. And I loved the fact that it's not clear and it's not obvious as to whether or not Aemond went for both Rhaenys and Aegon, or if it was a mistake with him going directly for Aegon, because that's what I took away from that episode. That's what I took away from that scene, which was Aemond specifically went for Aegon during the dragon fight. And when he said Dracarys, for me, that was aimed at Aegon. Then we get Aemond versus Malys, and I thought that dragon battle was fucking ace. The Dance of the Dragons in full swing. Finally, we get it, and it was fantastically done. The CGI was absolutely on fucking point. Yes, there was a lot of dragon battling. Yes, there's a lot of CGI, but I think you've got to appreciate the time and effort and energy that's gone into making these dragons not only look realistic, but look distinctive as well. And that was one of the call-outs that they had from Game of Thrones back in the day. They looked far too similar to one another. Here, you can clearly see who is who. I mean, my God, Vhagar is an absolute monster. And you can clearly see who is who. Vhagar, Malys, Sunfire. They've all got their own distinct patterns, colours, characteristics. So it was fantastic watching them going toe-to-toe. And this shot here was my favourite of the entire episode, with Vhagar just taking... I thought it was going to take Malys' head off, clean off. And then we got Rhaenys, unfortunately, going to her death, which it is sad to see such a prominent character go to the death, but it was clearly coming. We've had all of those loving scenes with her and Corlys, but she did her thing. She protected Rook's Rest the best she could, and she knew she had to protect those people. She knew that that was her duty, and duty is the death of love. I'm going to quote Maester Aemond in that one. So we had the Dance of the Dragons in full swing, and we had the repercussions of the Dance of the Dragons. Not only was it Rhaenys' death, but we also got the devastation of what this warfare brought to the people, to the normal common folk, to the man on the ground fighting with sword and shield. We got the devastation of what these dragons bring to the land. What we also got, though, was the most intriguing part of this episode. Is Aemond a Kinslayer? Did he target Aegon with both the Dragonfire, and was he going to? There was that scene at the end of the episode where he had his sword pulled. Was he going to go and finish the job off? Because if he did so, he knows now that he would be next in line to the throne and getting exactly what he wants and exactly what he thinks he deserves. Fantastic acting by Aemond in this scene. And it's clear now that he knows he's going to be in control, making the decisions. He's got the knife. Whether I think that's the knife with the prince that was promised written into it. So it'll be interesting to see if he does find out about the prophecy, about the prince that was promised, and it'll be interesting to find out whether Aegon knows about that, whether Alicent has told him about it, or whether Aemond reads these prophecies within the books, because we found out earlier on in the episode that the books are still within the Red Keep. Nothing's been burnt. So maybe Aemond is starting to, collate these pieces together to get more power and more influence and really drive home the prince that was promised prophecy. Maybe he thinks he's the prince that was promised now. That would be a really great spin and another player within the prophetic stuff. You've then got Rhaenyra, Alicent thinking it's Aegon, or Alicent now knowing it's Aegon the Conqueror, but potentially still thinking it's Aegon, and himself, Aemond, maybe thinking he is now the prince that was promised. So that's the big question for me. Both, is Aegon alive? Is he Aegon the Burnt? Is he Aegon the Unburnt? Is he Aegon the Alive? Is he Aegon the Dead? Is he Aegon Do Nothing? The Rook's Rest scene, battle, I thought this was expertly done. As a fan of Fire and Blood, they have brought this to life in such an impeccable way. The heraldry was on point, the armour was on point, the acting was on point, even the build-up was fantastic. All of the heraldry that I know George wanted more of in House of the Dragon compared with Game of Thrones. It finally gave us some absolutely brilliant action, probably some of, if not the best action we have got so far in House of the Dragon. It was a bit fast in terms of, the pace, and they seem to get a long way in a very short amount of time. But considering how well they did Rook's Rest, and as well, compared to what they've got to go from the books, it was expertly done, this was. The other great thing about the Rook's Rest piece was, when they edited this to perfection, Jace finding out about the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy with the Battle of Rook's Rest, I think that just made this a 10 out of 10 scene. But then we get Aelys come in, and she just literally blows the entire field to smithereens, and you can tell the devastation already that one dragon is doing to the common folk fighting in this battle. And it's a really great illustration of the devastation of warfare, and it's really good strategy from those within Rook's Rest as well. They didn't go outside of the walls, they stayed within the walls, but it was the dragon that was the turning point, or the dragons that were the turning point. But the star of this scene for me was when my man Corlys Velaryon rocks up, and he comes in and he literally just wipes the floor with all of the council and says, just because Rhaenyra's gone, don't be shitting on Rhaenyra, you've all got to kind of back her up in this at the moment. And I just thought it was a fantastic, expertly crafted scene, and really kind of brings us back as to why he's Hand, and why he's a badass, and why he's a conqueror of all the Seven Seas. He was one of the better characters in Season 1, I thought, and I don't think we've seen enough of him in Season 2 so far. Then we jump to Aegon's council, which is just as chaotic, and you can clearly see, without Otto there, and without Kristen there, and without Alicent there, it's literally no holes barred. And Aemond, you can clearly see as well, wants to take over. He thinks he's got every right to be king. We got that sense from him last season, and it's carried through very nicely and very obviously into Season 2. Now, at this point in the story, you obviously don't know what's going to go on during the Battle of Rook's Rest. But, again, another expertly crafted scene, and it's not obvious in the book, but the show is really bringing out that Aemond has got a massive chip on his shoulder because he thinks he wants to be king, and he thinks he's got every right to. He thinks he's a better person than Aegon, and Aegon's just there as the face of it all, but he wants to be both the face and the brains, and he's got Vhagar so he can go out and do all the battles as well, so he wants to do it all. Now, for me, I chose this frame here because that's the sight of someone who has been defeated by people he thought he could trust. Now we've had Kristen Cole and Aemond's plan come to fruition, and my God, what a great plan it was. But there's clear divide. The Kingsguard don't know what the fuck they're doing, really, and Aemond's clearly got the best plan. But I thought the standout scene for me was a Battle of Tongues, I should have called this, because that scene where they were speaking High Valyrian was impeccably done. And you can clearly see that they want to be secretive, but also he's doing that out of respect, I think Aemond is, because he knows that he's got the upper hand to Aegon. He just wants to make him and only him know that that's the plan, that's what we're doing, and why we're doing it is because Aemond knows Aegon hasn't got another plan, because he hasn't got a fucking clue. So leave it all to me, brother. I'm the one that's going to sort this out now. And so he did. Then we got that reveal from Larys about him knowing about the Moon Tea, and I think this was already obvious, right, that he knew that Alicent and Kristen Cole were bedding, but he's got that extra piece of information now that she's the one with the Moon Tea. She's kind of taking that relation with Kristen Cole too far. Who knows what he will do with that piece of information, whether he might blackmail her, or whether it's his get out of jail free card, or whether this is his ploy to turn Aegon against Alicent, maybe. I still can't quite put my finger on whose side Larys is on, and what he wants, what game he is playing in this Game of Thrones. Now, the big question on my mind is, who is Alys Rivers? What are the extent of her powers? What can she do? How can she do them? But I guess this is the problem with magical abilities in a fantasy show. It's not clear the source of her power. It's not clear if she actually has any powers. And it's not clear at the moment what she can do. Is she the one that's causing Daemon to have all of these visions and hallucinations and nightmares? Is it these drinks that she's feeding him? Who knows? It's implied that that's the case, but maybe it could just be the castle. In my opinion, though, is this is all to do with Alys Rivers. Now, whether she's a woods witch, whether she's a child of the forest, whether she is an owl, like she said in the show, or whether she's just some sort of red witch, maybe she is like Melisandre. It's not obvious right now, and I think it's one of the more interesting parts of this. What I would love to point out, though, is a massive nod to the book fans with her messing about with all of the blood and sucking her fingers with all of the blood on it, because, minor spoiler, in the books, it's claimed that Alys Rivers is something like 400 years old, and the reason she is able to keep her beauty and her looks is drinking this special magical blood. It's also interesting about what she knows and how she knows all of that stuff. She knew about Daemon. Maybe someone's told her. Maybe she's got visions. Maybe she's a warg, and she's warging, just like I think Larys is, into maybe Dragonstone or the Red Keep, or a bit of both. because what she was talking about was him and young Rhaenyra while they were still in King's Landing. So maybe she's been about for a while and, you know, she was expecting Daemon to go. Then we got the scene that basically came down to, if you help the Blackwoods, Daemon, fight the Brackens, us, the Blackwoods, will defend you in the wars to come, and we will pledge our allegiances to Rhaenyra. However, I've got a theory here. I think Daemon will try and have the Blackwood Army fight for his claim to the throne. Now, in the previous review, I mentioned that I don't think Daemon is looking to go against Rhaenyra, but I think they're trying to give us a lot of subtle hints that that's his actual intended plan, and that's what he actually wants to do. So there's a potential plot twist here where he could get rid of the Brackens or fight the Brackens with the Blackwoods, then basically turn around and say, instead of fighting for Rhaenyra, I want you to fight for me and try and put me on the throne. But yeah, another good scene, building that tension between the Blackwoods and the Brackens. Book fans will know that lore and will know that rivalry. One of the more interesting, politically charged scenes of the entire episode was with Aegon and Alicent. I thought the acting was on point here, and we had a quick snippet of this in the trailer last week, but Aegon is an extremely defeated man by the end of this, and Alicent's right. All he had to do was come in, listen to everyone, take their counsel, just even listen to what they're saying, rather than thrash about and thinking he knows best and just wanting war. He should have sat down, considered everyone's opinion, and then made a decision. But you can tell he's a brash, young, immature, naive king, and he wants to do things his way because he wants to put his mark on the world. He wants to follow his dad and his granddad and Aegon the Conqueror, his namesake. So it was right for Alicent to knock him down a peg or two. By the end of this scene, it was clear that Aegon was completely decimated as a king and didn't have any true purpose. And I can see why he rashly went onto his dragon and wanted to get involved with the war, because by the end of this scene, I think that he thought that was his only option, to get on his dragon, to go out into battle and to do his part within this war. But he wasn't following what Alicent's advice was. Do nothing. Just sit there, be quiet, let us rule, let Criston and Aemond go into battle, and we will do everything for you. I think the only one of the wobbles of this episode, out of nowhere, Rhaenys knows about Alan. Now, how she came to know, it's not explicit. It's not really obvious to the watcher, I don't think. Yes, they imply that she does know that Alan is Corlys's bastard son, but they could have done a better job in removing that speculation and just flat out kind of giving her a reason or some sort of method or opportunity for her to find out about this. Nonetheless, she knows, and considering now we know the end, it almost doesn't make any difference, because she's going to take that information to her grave. What I would say is, though, the acting was on point, though, in this. The emotion, you can tell from Rhaenys' character, really on point. I'm finding Alan a bit robotic, if I'm honest, and he is coming across as quite Terminator-like. So I'm hoping we kind of, when we get to later on in the season, hoping he kind of loosens up a bit, really. If you enjoyed the content, consider dropping a like and subscribe so you never miss an upload. Catch you on the next one. Cheers.